Recently, I've been receiving a lot of questions from clients and our community on this channel about whether the classic 4% rule should be lowered. Now, there are certainly problems with the 4% rule, and as of recently, there's been a lot of discussion about new safe withdrawal rates that are actually in the 2 to 3% range. I'm here to offer maybe an alternative perspective. For those that aren't familiar with the 4% rule, it is the most widely used retirement rule of thumb in the industry. Of some of the most popular retirement finance books, most of them use the 4% rule or a higher safe spending rule. And here's the premise behind this rule. If you take a 50-50 stock bond portfolio over a 30-year retirement, historically speaking, 4% was the lowest sustainable withdrawal rate, meaning it's essentially the worst case scenario. 4% is your starting withdrawal rate from your portfolio and is meant to be inflation adjusted each year. Now, if you've been watching our channel for some time, you know that I'm critical of the 4% rule. My biggest argument is that it lacks real-world application. Most Americans have Social Security or other forms of income like a pension that must be worked into the equation. Working with these completely changes your perception of how much retirement income you can start to live on. Let's say we have a 62-year-old couple with reasonable Social Security benefits and they are delaying those benefits to their late 60s. Because income is turning on later and lowering their withdrawal rate, they could actually start by spending a higher withdrawal rate, around 7.6% of their portfolio with the example I have on the screen. In fact, with this type of analysis, historical starting withdrawal rates can vary quite widely based on goals, asset composition, and more. Some of my other critiques of the 4% rule are based on the use of a small data set. Think about this. If we're using 120 years of historical data, and we're simulating a 30-year retirement, there are really only 4 distinctly different simulation periods within that data set. Every other period has overlapping data, and that's obviously problematic. And this is exactly where this idea of lowering the 4% rule comes in. Now, I've been sent this video on the right here a few different times. It's by a gentleman, Ben Felix, who is a Canadian portfolio manager who puts out some amazing content specifically on investing. He recently recorded a video walking through some new research that shows an updated safe withdrawal rate should be in the 2% range. Now, this is an alarming finding for retirees, but should you run out and immediately adjust your plan accordingly? Well, I hope to give maybe some alternative perspectives here. Let's walk through some of the valid criticisms of the 4% rule cited in this paper and video. First, US stock performance over the last century has been incredibly strong and has been one of the top performing stock markets worldwide. The 4% rule study was based just in the US, so this can be problematic. If economic dominance of the US starts to wane, well, then the 4% rule might be overly optimistic. Second, as we look back into history, certain events going a slightly different way could have entirely changed the trajectory of the American economy. Let's take the Cuban Missile Crisis. What if nuclear war wouldn't have been avoided? We may not even be here today. We might have seen a lower withdrawal rate with even one major event going a different direction. Then finally, longevity is an unknown. With an earlier retirement age and technological advances, who's to say a 30-year retirement is long enough to plan for? If a 35 or 40-year retirement were to be used, the safe withdrawal rate would no longer be 4%. Now, I find few issues with these critiques. In the goal of risk management, we need to account for both seen as well as unseen risks. We shouldn't tie ourselves to the 4% rule as if it's written in stone. But here's the problem. We can what if ourselves down to a near 0% safe withdrawal rates with the right assumptions. Historically, both Russian and Chinese stock markets have shut down and effectively gone to zero, only to reopen years later. But again, beyond that, we could what if ourselves to an even worse potential future. There is no exact amount that you can take from your portfolio and be 100% certain that it will last for your entire retirement. The future is uncertain, and there's really no way around that. And so really the idea of a safe withdrawal rate can be more accurately titled, what is a reasonable withdrawal rate? And with this as our new definition, reasonable is entirely dependent on the variables that you want to assume. And so from a reasonable point of view, I don't know, 2.7 seems a bit too conservative. Let me explain. Let's first use what I'll call the naive approach to a safe withdrawal rate. With this approach, you take your retirement portfolio and you divide by your retirement time horizon. So if you were to use a 30-year retirement, you can take 3.33% as a starting point. If you start out by taking less than this, you're basically making an assumption that your portfolio, in the worst case scenario, will do worse than simply maintaining purchasing power. Let me ask you this. Why do you invest in the first place? Hopefully your answer is to grow your money. Why do you save up for retirement? Again, hopefully your answer is to utilize that money for income when you are no longer working. Well, if we use a riskier portfolio to grow our money, but by doing so, it forces us to live on less than we could be living on if we had maybe used a more conservative portfolio, then is that more risky portfolio actually serving us? Said another way, if we were going to plan on the worst case being our retirement, is the worst case worse in a riskier portfolio or in a safer portfolio? Furthermore, practically speaking, we can insure against risks that we have and pass them to another party. Let's say you were going to follow the 2.7% safe withdrawal rate rule. Why not purchase an income annuity instead? A 60-year-old couple would see a 6.2% joint income payout per year at the time of recording this video. Now the problem is this would not adjust to inflation. Even with this, however, if we assumed 3% inflation, it would take until year 30 until an inflation-adjusted 2.7% withdrawal rate would offer more nominal income than the annuity. Through 40 years, you would have taken nearly $500,000 more if you went the income annuity route and insured against the risks that cause you to start with a very low withdrawal rate in the first place. Now, on average, a diversified portfolio is expected to do better than an income annuity. But if you're going to live your retirement as if the bad case scenario is going to happen, an income annuity becomes attractive with that comparison. Next, I think it's beneficial to note historical safe withdrawal rates in other countries. The chart on the screen is taken from Wade Pfau's book, How Much Can I Spend? Although a world portfolio and other countries' safe withdrawal rates would have been lower than 4%, many fall in the 3% range. And so again, I think it's completely rational to find issue with the 4% rule, and maybe even lower it to some extent. But how low can we go in safe withdrawal limbo? Lastly, the 4% rule is based off the assumption that a retiree will need the same amount of money in year 1 as they do in year 30, just adjusted for inflation. Well, this is not the case. Spending and consumption falls with age. You can expect to spend more in year 1 on an inflation-adjusted basis than in year 25. So safe withdrawal rate logic should be updated to account for this. Historically speaking, when we update the 4% rule with this methodology, we find a 4.73% rule, nearly 20% higher starting income. And so here's the thing, I don't like the 4% rule. It's a great shoot from the hip calculation, but that's about it. More importantly, psychology, goals, and risk tolerance can change from individual to individual. The average withdrawal rate you could have taken historically would have been around 6%. Now, some investors will find they want to be more aggressive. They care the most about the first decade of spending in their retirement, and so they want to start by spending between 4.5% and 5.5%. Other investors may find freedom in frugality and would rather maintain peace of mind, and will start by spending less than 4%, but will have less to worry about with long-run sustainability. In terms of what to expect in the future, maybe the best economic days are behind us. But maybe we're right on the edge of another technological revolution. The future is uncertain. To remedy all of this mental gymnastics, I think a lot of retirees will find freedom and simplification in using a dynamic income approach. Let's say you start with the 4% rule. Guardrails are placed on both sides of this portfolio and they will inform income decisions. It's very likely that you will be able to spend more than 4% in most situations. Remember, this is the worst case scenario, at least historically speaking. Setting your starting point low, you will likely see income adjustments higher throughout your retirement. But it's also possible that a new worst case scenario is set, a new safe withdrawal rate. In this scenario, you will hit lower guardrails and will obviously need to adjust your income down to maintain that long-run sustainability. But rather than deciding on one point in time how much to spend, you adapt. By doing so, we can largely stop asking what if. I hope you found some alternative perspectives in this video valuable. I'm a huge fan of Ben Felix and his work. If you're looking to see how to adapt safe withdrawal rates to your actual situation, click here to learn more. And always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. Thanks for watching.